But let's dive in, because Jessica, I think that you've got a pretty awesome story to share about how to launch languages. You and I have had the chance to connect a few times to talk about the process you took for scaling Yext into a lot of different languages and generally growing the amount of content that you're supporting. But we also have a very specific story about launching Japanese content, which I'm excited for everyone to hear about. But before we do that, what is Yext? Can you tell us a little bit about your product solution and what you all are bringing to the marketplace?
Sure. So Yext, we deal with everything related to search, but mainly search that's on your website. So a lot of people have heard of site search, but what Yext has done is we've taken all of the products that are in our arsenal and really connected them in. So when people are asking questions about your brand or your restaurant or your mortgage company or your doctor's office, they're usually asking and trying to find out specific things about you. And what we're really targeting is whether or not you are actually able to answer those questions and then drive to whatever form of conversion it is that you want your customers to do. So we've created a solution called the Knowledge Graph. So if you go to the next slide, basically, which is everything about your brand or business all in one place, structured in a way where a customer could come to your website, go to the search bar at the top, type in a specific question, and they'll get a specific answer in return. Right now, most site search solutions is really just a crawl of your website looking for specific keywords and then populating a list of things that could possibly answer your question. What we've created is a platform where you would put all of the facts about your business into one place where it's tagged. It's kind of like an intelligent, structured database where an answer will be actual answer to the question will show up when somebody searches on your website. If you go to the next slide, we've basically built out what we call the Search Experience Cloud, where we have a variety of different products and then ways to analyze those products, ways to generate reviews. We have a bunch of different app directories and a variety of different solutions for all different kinds of businesses. So in the end, basically, our technology gives you the ability to structure all the facts about your brand in a single source of truth to allow any question that anyone answers to be answered correctly and quickly. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, that's so cool. And actually, just on like the first slide that you showed here, what people are searching in Google, this is exactly what I'm searching. I mean, it's like people are doing it's called like a location-based search. Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, so
now?
that's like where it basically generates from. Like most of the time people are searching for, find me a burrito place open late. And then you'd kind of search that in Google, and the answers that you get would populate in these Google knowledge cards that would kind of give you a burrito place near you that's open late. But in order to rank for that, you kind of have to have, you know, made sure that your Google My Business listing is updated in the right place and all those kinds of things. And Yext kind of allows you to do all of that in one place.
How did you know I'm searching for burritos open late?
I mean, that's what I will be searching for later on today. It's burritos. Burrito place open late.
Right. That's the celebratory burrito for later tonight. Well, that's really cool. And I mean, all of us are using search every day, multiple times a day. So this is a really interesting product because it's going to be used by everybody. And of course, people are searching things all over the world. So when Yext started to grow as a business, we've been working together, Smartling and Yext, for 6 years now. The content ecosystem was quite different, and your launch strategy was quite simplistic. Can you walk us through the process that you all took at the beginning to start scaling your business for new languages and new markets?
Yeah, so we really had two main places. We had our website, which is hosted on WordPress, and we wanted to have international sites for all of our different international users and prospects. But we also have our platform, which is we basically have our product, which also needs to be functional for people who speak different languages. So it's not only the hard-coded terms that we have in our product when you would log in and see, you know, login or knowledge graph, like those kinds of things, but also all of the UX kind of aspects of our application as well is kind of the two places that we needed to start in order to scale.
Yeah. And things have evolved quite a bit since then. Over the years, the content experience has become quite expansive. And what I understand is that you've realized that you can't manage all of this content in multiple languages without software.
Yeah, I mean, literally requests that come through to myself and to the marketing department, every single request has to be followed up with the question of, should this be considered for translation? Like, no matter what it is, whether it's like the boilerplate, or it's an email, or it's an ad, or you know, a white paper, everything has to be followed up with the question of, do we need to translate this? And that's we don't have an in-house translation department that's just sitting there waiting to translate materials. So we have to have something that is fast and quick, but also intelligent, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to the process of localizing content. You have to think about, what is the budget going to be? How are you going to get the content to the translators and get it back? How are you going to resolve questions that are outstanding? When you get content that's coming into under your domain, so marketing content, what's sort of like the decision matrix that you use to determine whether or not something would get translated?
It's really a partnership between myself and our international teams. We have international marketers in a couple different offices across the globe. So it's me connecting with them and saying, you know, is this something that you need for your market? Is this something that your sellers will use? Is it relevant for your market? Like, is this a product that we actually even offer right now in your language or in your country? And then, you know, where does this fall within the priority of all of the other things that those teams are working on? So it's really a partnership between myself and our international marketing teams to determine what we need to do.
What's really cool is that Yext has a lot of these different content types in a variety of repositories. Jessica, you mentioned WordPress, but there are other places where you store data and content, code repositories, things like that, right?
Yep. We have WordPress, we have our product application, we have just uploading slides and Word documents, we have video for transcription, we have a Zendesk integration, so our help site and then our developer site all gets translated through here as well. So lots of content coming in from different places.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not familiar with Smartling, what we offer and what we do exactly for Yext is, you have all of your content, Jessica. It's in all of those different platforms. And then we have pre-built integrations with the platforms that you've just named in particular, but we support other ones as well. Zendesk, WordPress, GitHub, things like that. Those integrations automatically ingest content from Yext or from our customers, and they get compiled into specific projects within the Smartling translation management system, which is where you spend some of your time managing the whole translation pipeline. It's also where Smartling translators log in. They create the translations for the various content types that you have. Then it automatically is published across the different properties.
Yep, exactly. We have a very specific workflow in regards to all the translations that marketing manages. With the WordPress integration, it was a custom integration that our developers built alongside Smartling, specific to the way that we use WordPress and specific to the way that we want to update our pages. Similarly with the integration into our product, that was also a custom integration that we built alongside Smartling. And And then, you know, I'm always looking for the next thing that Smartling is going to come out with in terms of integrations or process updates, or the different kinds of content types that can be updated, mediums meaning. So I know that you guys are working on being able to upload PDFs is something new that you guys are working on. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. I have lots of PDFs to upload for you guys. So ready when you are.
Sounds good. Well, one thing that was really cool to look at when we were preparing for all of this is that you've actually scaled 15x in 6 years. And software automation has been essential to that process. But can you walk us through, like, how has the software enabled you to scale at this rate in such a short time frame?
Yeah, I mean, putting aside the marketing docs that get translated, which is, you know, me uploading a document to the Smartling platform and doing it that way, the automation of our WordPress integration is pretty key. Basically, we have a page built out in WordPress. Somebody goes in and makes an update. I go in, I select the languages that I want that update to be sent through to, and I hit a button that says update, and then it automatically uploads those strings into the Smartling platform. I can then go into the platform and see them and make adjustments or add context or exclude certain words or certain strings that maybe don't need to be translated. And then the Smartling translators translate it, or it connects into the, the translation memory and just automatically finds the phrase that I'm looking for, and it gets translated, and then it gets published and then pushed directly back through to WordPress into the international site and then gets deployed. So it's, you know, pretty seamless for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's huge when you want to launch a new language. If you think about your website and you think of all of the pages on your website, you have to decide what pages you're going to translate. There's hundreds of them. We have a bulk upload option. So I can literally go into our US instance of our WordPress and select all the pages that I want translated and hit a button, and they just all they go through the process to get translated. It's kind of incredible that it kind of works that way. So.
Well, that's exactly what we're actually going to dive into now, which is what happens when you want to add a new language. Yep. And I'm going to turn off the slide so we can have a less formal conversation about this now. But what we really wanted to dive into today with you is what is the process that you take to launch a new languages? And specifically, why don't we talk about the time 2 years ago when you launched content for Japan? You actually launched your entire company for Japan. Is that right?
Yeah, we opened up our Tokyo office. Yep.
So tell us, like, bring us back 2 years ago, 2018. What happened? What was the driving factor here, and what did you do to get the process started?
So when Yext decided to officially launch Yext in Japan, it was connected to the launch of and the opening of our office in Tokyo. We determined that the prospect and the customer base in Japan was huge for us. So what's the first thing that you need when you launch your business in a new market is you need a place for customers to go and request a demo, basically, or contact sales. And you can't do that without having some form of a landing page or some form of a website. So we determined that we were going to build out a basic version of our US site for Japan. We decided what were the key pages that needed to be translated, what were the key marketing materials and sell sheets and decks that we needed to arm our sellers with in order to, start going out into the market to sell to Japanese businesses. And we needed to have a marketer in Japan who could actually help us manage that. I don't speak Japanese. So we need to have somebody who'd be able to manage the translation aspect of our materials into Japanese. Now, if you know anything about Japanese, which I didn't at the time, was that it's, some languages can be more of a direct translation. But the way that we talk about things in English is not the way that people talk about things in Japanese. And that's kind of where we got into a bit of a pickle, really, in terms of our plans for Japanese translations. Is, you know, how can we talk about our business using all of the materials that we currently have, but make it make sense for people in Japan, and make it make sense, and talk about things in the way that they would talk about things in Japanese. It was kind of a new territory for us. We didn't really have to deal with that with the Romance languages. We were really able to provide that context and change up what we needed to, but Japanese was different.
So you started to translate the content, and as it came back, some red flags were raised. The content was not fitting to your brand and for the market.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. Not only in the sense of like maybe legitimately didn't make sense, but also we were realizing that the way that we talk about our business doesn't make sense in Japanese. Like they don't talk about tech the same way that we do, was something that we realized. So it really became a hot topic in marketing, to determine, you know, do we need to change our messaging for Japan? Do we need to kind of go in a different direction? And how are we going to do that? We're a fairly small team. We have one Japanese marketer. That's a lot, you know, to put on one person. So yeah, it really became an issue.
So you had the one Japanese marketer, and the feedback was, hey, we got to put the brakes on here, because the Yext that I know from, you know, my research and working for the company is not coming through in the content. How are we going to launch this product effectively in this market? How are we going to develop an experience that's representative of our product solution?
Exactly. And to do it with minimal, you know, she was one marketer. We couldn't have her spending her entire time reviewing translations. It was just not feasible. We needed her to be out there in the field. We needed her to be putting together events. We needed her to be helping our sellers. So we were seeing translations come back from Smartling. They just weren't exactly matching up to what we needed them to. So I reached out to our CSM and was like, we got to talk about this. We have a problem. I don't really know what to do. So I think we determined a couple different routes. We did a kind of like a look back to figure out, what does the data say? How many strings are being changed after translation? You know, that's the easiest way to kind of see if translations aren't working, is, you know, how many strings are being manually changed by our Yext marketer after translation comes back from Smartling. You know, how many strings are matching to translation memory? Let's look at the data and figure out what we can do there. Another option was to get on the phone with Smartling and to actually speak with some of our translators in Japan and talk with them about, you know, what do they know of Yext? What issues are they having with translating the content that we're providing to them? So in the end, we did both. You guys did a full kind of data analysis on what you were seeing in terms of the translations that were coming through in Japanese, and how on both sides we're handling translations. And then we all got on the phone to talk about translations in Japanese in general, and what were the next steps that we could take in order to make it better.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into all of this, and I'll bring the slides back, because one thing that's really cool about Smartling, and I've always loved this part about Smartling, is that you actually know who your translator is. We built an entire marketing and brand campaign around this last year, Move the World with Words, because what we found is that people actually really care about their translation resources, but they don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. This woman, her name is Now, and she's a Japanese translator who works for Smartling. I actually don't know if she worked on Yext's account specifically, but she works on our other customers. And one of the things that you mentioned that we did is we actually set up a Zoom call between you and the translator for Yext. What was that like for you?
It was very late at night. It was really, I thought it was very interesting. We had a lot of people on the call. We had myself and we had our sales, our like sales team guy who also was living in Japan but was American. We had a bunch of people from the Japanese team, including our Japanese marketer, but other people who were working on Japanese translations, because at the same time, while the marketing team was dealing with this situation in regards to marketing materials, we were also translating our product into Japanese. So it was a similar situation. So we kind of got all the people on the phone to talk about this all together. And I think it was really eye-opening to, I think it's one thing to submit, you kind of have to think about your translations. Sometimes you're submitting them into a void. Is it a human on the other side that's translating? Is it a computer? You guys, it's humans. But there is actually a person that's sitting in another place who's looking at the content that you submitted and figuring out how to say it in another language. So the translations that you're going to get back are really only as good sometimes as the context that you can provide behind them. Because imagine if you just get some paragraph that somebody asks you to translate with no context whatsoever. You have no idea what the tone's supposed to be. You have no idea what it's being used for. Is it a sales pitch versus is it a legal document? Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it supposed to be funny? And I think in having that conversation with the Smartling Japanese team and the Yext Japanese team, it actually really made me think about how we were doing our translations overall for all of our languages, even for the Romance languages that we hadn't really run into any issue with, which was, are we providing enough context? Are we doing enough work on our end to make translations better? And I decided that we weren't really, and that we needed to do better. If the translations were something that we were going to care about and we were going to pay a company to take the time to translate our content, and we wanted to get really good translations back, then we had to do a little more work on our end in order to make that happen.
Well, thanks for sharing that. It's really interesting to hear that, there was this like a moment where you sort of recognize, woo, we gotta double down. This is a true partnership, not just between Smartling and Yext, but between Yext and teams within Yext.
Yeah.
It was a real global effort within the company to say, how are we going to launch in Japan, which I think is fantastic, because it isn't just translation. Like, this is your business, and you took it so seriously. And what you mentioned towards the end there is that you started to develop some assets that would help the translators do a better job, and also define internally what the Japanese translations would look like. One of the things that we did with you is develop and update a glossary specifically for Japan.
Yeah. We have a glossary that, like you said, is specific for Japanese, about how we want to define certain terms, what terms we want to translate, what terms we don't want to translate, what terms that we do want to translate, but we want a specific Japanese translation. And all of that got updated for a Japanese specific glossary that we have that gets maintained. Alongside that, we created a Japanese specific style guide. So we created a style guide that our Japanese team worked on, that literally said how we wanted things to be translated in Japanese, and what the tone of Yext's messaging should be in Japanese. Yext has sometimes a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be a little humorous, it can be a little sarcastic sometimes. How does that bode in Japanese? It might not bode so well all the time. It might not make sense. So we needed to determine, what is it that we're trying to say to our Japanese audience, and we made a very detailed style guide for the Smartling translators to use. And yeah, you're showing it here. It's very specific. It took a fair amount of time, but well worth it.
It is unbelievably specific. And just to go back for a second, so we've got a glossary, and for those of you who are not part of the Smartling ecosystem yet, you can actually create the glossary within Smartling, and we'll show you what it looks like in the CAD tool where the translators work. But you can update it anytime. It's all cloud-based. Same with the style guide. We have a template. You can fill out the template. Yext filled out the template. But you all went above and beyond by creating this like really dynamic Google Doc with a ton of detail about how you want the content to be managed for Japanese.
Our Japanese team I didn't do this. They did this. This was absolutely incredible. The amount of effort that was put into this. But it really helped. I think it helped the translations coming out of Smartling, but it also helped our Japanese team, which was a new team, mind you, to really figure out how we wanted to message in Japan.
That's a cool thought, actually. It's putting, like, if you're launching, it's like a pro tip that you just shared. If you're launching an entirely new office, mm-hmm. and you're trying to localize your product and your website content experience for that market, put the onus of delivering a style guide for that market on the folks who are just starting off so that they can onboard and learn who you are, why you exist, how to sell. That's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, I think I mean, taking that idea, we then had each of our other international offices create a style guide for their team. We had our German team update a section of the style guide for themselves, in terms of how they want to say certain things. Some things we translate, some things we don't, and each team might want to translate something differently from another team, or they don't like the tagline that we might be using for a certain campaign or something, and they want something different. So while we're one company that's headquartered in the United States, we have these outposts across the globe with their own specific audiences, with their own specific messaging and things that they want to say and how they want to say it. So I think it's really important that our websites and our marketing materials and our sales materials reflect that.
How long did this whole process take from identifying that there was a real strategic opportunity to address how you were going to go to market in Japan and delivering this really complete style guide? Was it days, weeks, months?
I would say it probably took us like 4 to 5 months. It was a fair amount of effort. We had to put together that style guide. So that took a while for the Japanese team to do that. And then, putting together that style guide, sending it back to you guys, making sure that enough context was there. We also, another, I guess, pro tip would be, we also shared some of our English sales materials. I put that into the style guide. I'm asking people to translate information about our products. We hire people and send our sales team through revenue onboarding to teach them how to sell our products. So I was like, well, there are these people that have never heard of us before that are translating all of our content. They should know what our products do, and they should have a place to be able to look to learn more about them, to get more context in order to do better translations. So all of that kind of took a while to pull together, put in the right that we had provided back change in strings and words that were being then manually updated, to kind of see the success of the work that we had put through.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of that data momentarily. We did get a question from Carlos. We might tag team this because we might want to tag team this, Jessica, but the questions are, do the translators take care of only the translations, or do they also take care of the maintenance of the TMs, glossaries, things like that? For example, if a term is updated and modified in the glossary, do they take care of making sure all the TMs are properly updated? How are you all managing that?
So if I'm updating a term in the glossary, like if I'm adding in a new term, let's say, and usually this has mainly happened for us where either the translation that we've been seeing in translations coming through is just incorrect, or it's a new product that we're launching or something, and we're saying that this is a term that should not be translated. You know, the name, we don't translate the name of our products. So I need to make sure that that's in the glossary and that Smartling gets that we're not going to translate that. So I have a really wonderful relationship with our customer service manager, and I just email her and I email the translation team. We have a dedicated kind of translation manager, and I flag it for them. To know that this new term has been added or this term has been changed. And then they kind of ask me if I want the team to retroactively go back and find all of the strings and change it, or if it's just a kind of moving forward thing. And depending on the level of the term, I guess, like how high priority or high visibility that term is, I'll determine if I want them to retroactively go back and change everything, or if it's just a kind of moving forward situation.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a super clean way to manage this. And Carlos, there are a couple of other ways that this could be managed as well. And Jessica, maybe this is some new news for you, but it's super easy. First of all, our translators will take care of everything you need. So if you need them to review your translation memories, they can do that. If you need them to translate glossary terms, they can on a regular basis or once, they can do that too. It's super easy. Like you said, Jessica, you can email the language services team and we'll help set everything up for you. You can also pretty easily submit glossary terms for translation through a specific workflow. So that's another way to take care of this. And Carlos as well, we're gonna just show exactly what it looks like when you're translating content in Smartling. As translations are created in Smartling, they are saved to the TM. They're automatically committed to the translation memory. And if the translator updates a word that's already been translated before, then it overwrites the translation memory entry that you have. And you actually can see multiple versions of the translations as a translator. So if the word guarantee has been translated 4 different times, hopefully it wouldn't have been, you could actually see the 4 different ways it was translated, and it'll be stack ranked by the date it was translated. So the hypothesis there being the most recent translation would be the most high quality translation. What you're seeing here is actually the experience within the CAT tool, and something that's different from Smartling and all of the other groups that are in the field is that we actually provide a dynamic visual context interface from which the translator, as they type the translations, they can see them appear in the environment that the translations will live, which is super cool. And one of the words in your glossary, which we highlighted just a few slides ago, is this SERP, which is search engine results page, which you don't want to translate. And in the translator workbench, it's really cool that the glossary terms are visible for the translator to see. And if you hover over it, you actually get a tooltip that says exactly what you see here, and a little bit more. It says an abbreviation of search engine results page, and it would say do not translate. So this is a really cool feature that we've got built into the platform, and all of this together helps you to realize some results. So let's talk a little bit, Jessica, about the results that you were able to realize, starting with the percentage of strings changed from 2018, which is when this project started, to today.
Yep. We saw the benefit of the work that we put in when we started. I was chatting with our Japanese marketing team, which had kind of become a team at a certain point. And they were there were less strings that they were changing manually, and that the translations coming back from the Smartling Japanese translators were getting better and made more sense, and there was less time that they needed to be putting into reviewing them after they were coming back, and the data doesn't lie. So it's kind of really interesting to see the success of the work and the steps that we took in order to fix this, because it was, you know, it was really weighing heavily on a lot of us in terms of how much effort was needing to be put into something that we kind of wanted to be a seamless process. So all of the work up front really paid off.
Yeah, this is a super cool result to see the percentage of strings changed decreasing by 88%. It just means that your team is able to spend less time thinking about producing translations and product fit for Japan, and more time building better events or
Yep.
pivoting during you know, the digital acceleration that's been brought on by the events of this year. You're able to actually focus on those things as opposed to translation, which is sort of happening in the background without a whole lot of effort at this point.
Yep. Exactly. And you know, the way that we kind of have our workflows built out in terms of how we get things translated and what gets translated really all kind of got streamlined even more after all of this effort had been put in, not just for Japan, but for all of the languages that we were translating.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool too. And the second data point that we're showing here is that the percentage of words that were impacted decreased as well by 87%. It went from about 13% to around 2%, which is like just an awesome result, because it means less time and energy of your team spent on editing translations. And for us, it's a cool result because it means that the work that we're producing is meaningful to Yext.
Yeah, and you know, it also means that, you know, the translation memory, I think, is one of the most important pieces of having a translation platform. You have this database full of all of the things and all the things that you've ever said and all of the things that you write about and talk about in one place, translated in a way that you like, whether or not it was correct coming from Smartling to begin with, or it was changed later on, it's correct in this database. So, you know, we all have marketing materials that use the same phrases and use the same terms over and over again, but in different ways. And you kind of load it in, and the translation memory kicks into action and finds those strings, it finds those phrases and translates them. And it saves you money, it saves you time, it saves you effort. So all of these things kind of, you know, impact each other. I think the translation memory is a really key piece also of having a successful translation workflow. If you're going to have people at your company review translations that come back from Smartling, which we do for certain pieces of content and certain levels of things in terms of priority. I am very adamant that they do that within the Smartling platform. Don't upload a document into Smartling and then download it and go review it on your computer elsewhere and make any edits in the document. Make those edits in the translation memory, so the next time that you upload that document, or the next time that you upload something that's similar, those changes that you made get reflected there. Otherwise, you're just doing work over and over and over again. So everything really kind of interconnects to each other, and the effort that you yourself or your company or your marketing team or whatever put into your translations really pays off in the end.
Yeah. Well, speaking of paying off, I think this slide sort of summarizes the efforts of your team really well, because between 2014 and 2020, as we saw earlier, you've increased your demand of language translation by 15 times. Mm-hmm. Yet over the span of you've added 6 times new languages, the processed word count has increased by 15x. You've still been able to decrease your cost per word by 25%. So just in round numbers, if you were paying 20 cents per word in 2014, now you're spending 15 cents per word, because of all of the technology inputs that you're putting in, the way you're leveraging your translation memory, all of that hard work you did to launch these languages effectively has, in the end, resulted in a lower total cost of supporting Japanese marketplace and other markets.
Yep. We also launched a variety of new departments within Yext that started translating content, like our CS team started translating all of the documentation that they have and, you know, onboarding materials for clients. So that provided us marketing with a whole slew of new phrases and messages and things that we benefit from now when that stuff gets translated, and our translation memory just continues to grow. And we were able to link the CS project to our glossary and our translation memory. So they were able to benefit from the work that we'd been doing over the past however many years we've been working with Smartling, which saved them time and effort because they were just starting to translate stuff. So yeah, we all kind of help, and the work that we all do benefits each other also within Smartling and outside of it. So
yeah, that's awesome. So what else, if anything, would you be open to sharing about your experience in working with Smartling's language service division?
I would honestly say I view Smartling as our partner, not necessarily as just a vendor that we pay for. When I have a problem, something's not working properly, something's not working the way that I want it to, or the way that I thought it was supposed to, I email. Maybe I'm an annoying customer, I don't know, but I email and I talk to you guys about it. It's a lot easier to just be honest about what's happening and what you want to do. Really, actually, a good example that just came up within the last week is that Yext is trying to expand the way that we do our live events. We want to do live closed captioning on events to make it more inclusive of all different kinds of people who want to watch our content. So
that's cool.
The first thing we did was we reached out to Smartling to be like, hey, we want to do this thing. How do we leverage all of the translations that we have in Smartling? Because not only do we want to do that in English, we want to do it in French and German and all the different, you know, audiences that we reach. So we reached out to Smartling to be like, we want to do this thing. What do you guys think? How can we come up with something? And we're in discussions about, you know, what can we do to solve this? And that's kind of how I approach all of the conversations that we have with Smartling. You know, I'm not going to say and sit here that there haven't been problems that have arisen, because there are. We're working with technology, we're working with things that break, we're working with new people coming in and not understanding how things work and needing, you know, refreshers and changing workflows and creating new linguistic assets and all this kind of stuff that we have to create. But in the end, I find that just, you know, talking to you guys and telling you what the problem is and then coming together to figure out the solution has really been what's been most successful for us. And that's why we still use you guys. We still are longtime customers, and we keep launching new projects and languages and keep coming up with new things and new ways that we can work together. So I really think that would be my advice. And especially in regards to translation, which is really important. You don't want your messaging that's going out to your customers and your prospects to be incorrect. It's especially hard for the US-based company. Most of the messaging that comes out is from the United States. So it's really important to make sure that your messaging is correct for the audiences that you're sending it out to. People don't think about that sometimes. We have all these automated emails that go out and all of these automated messaging platform notifications, all this kind of stuff that needs to make sense in every single language that you're translating it in. Otherwise, imagine if you went into a platform and you saw a notification and it was translated into Italian and it didn't make sense to you. You'd be like, well, what is this? Does this company care about me? Does this company care about what I think or how I'm using this product? So I've tried to, you know, instill that idea into all of the people that I can at Yext, and we're all in agreement that it matters to us. So,
well, thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing this story. We almost made it through the entire presentation without a dog barking. Without a dog bark, but Fitz just had to chime in.
He agreed. He
agrees, and he's appreciative. He's saying thank you as well. But to those of you who are on the call, if you have questions, feel free to jump in and ask a couple questions. Ruben's just asked one. When going into a new country like Japan, did you conduct any market research that you may have translated with Smartling? So first and foremost, did you do any market research? I'm sure the answer is yes.
Yes, we definitely did market research to determine, you know, what kind of personas, what kind of audiences, you know, what were the things, how Yext could help in Japan. I'm trying to think if we actually put out any kind of report that showed that or translated any of that. I don't know if we did, but we do translate consumer studies that we do, third-party consumer studies that we then end up writing white papers or blog posts about. We do translate that with Smartling. You know, we also use, we have a design team that is in the US. We don't have designers in all of our different offices right now. So we're also asking our design team to translate and design assets in other languages too. And we've really been able to rely on Smartling to assist us with that. You know, we'll translate the white paper copy for a white paper, and then Smartling, you know, helps us by designing it in an InDesign file, and we send the InDesign file along with the package and all the fonts and the images and stuff to Smartling, and they design the white paper for us and then send it back to us for review. And that's really helped us as well to scale all of the different assets that we need to translate.
It's mind-boggling to think of all the different types of content that are out there. And it sounds like you guys are balancing all of them beautifully. Thank you, Ruben, for the kudos to Jessica. Congrats for recognizing the colleague needed help.
It's tough to be a lone marketer. That was, and it's still tough, you know, to be the only marketer in a country that's launching. You have so many responsibilities and obligations. So kudos to you for doing that and being that person and taking that on.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you again. I'm sure that if you guys have more questions for Jessica, she's on LinkedIn, you can find her there. We're going to be putting this webinar onto our website, so you'll be able to rewatch it if you had something that you wanted to go back to. But Jessica, this has been great. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was not as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be. So.
Well, you did great. You did great. Thank you. And thanks to everybody who's joined today. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
Bye.
Take care.